Today, I'm going to show you how I create hand-painted transparent papers for collage. Using specific papers and a handful of techniques, I'll share with you how I'm making gorgeous papers that will melt into other collage elements in my giant oyster collage series. Come along with me as I make papers with dreamy blends. I'm Jackie Bernardi, and welcome to my studio. All right, it seems like I have every supply in my studio on the table right now, but I don't. I'm going to try to do my best today to let you know exactly what I'm using when I'm using it, but just in case I skip something, all of the supplies, all of the colors will be listed in the description below this video, so you can find it there. But what I'm going to start out with is my light phthalo blue, and this is a golden high flow acrylic. And I just love the color, and I always know that I want to use it, but also it's one of the colors that I used in last week's video where I was starting to build up the background for my giant oyster collage series. Now, the transparent papers that I'm making today will also be used in that series. Some of them, maybe not all of them, we'll see. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get started, and I'm going to tell you exactly the materials I use to make translucent and transparent papers for collage. The paper I'm holding on to now is medical exam table paper. This is the paper that your doctor puts down on the table before you sit on it. It is crepe style medical exam paper. I have a link to the paper that I use in the description. It is not available all over the world. However, there are very similar types of paper, and I will try to link those as well. The paper that I'm working on, though, right now with the Brayer and the Derylide yellow and the light phthalo blue, that is wet strength tissue paper, and that is available all over the world. The paper that I use is the Carnival brand because I think it holds up very well and beautifully. And the thing that I love about it is I can get it soaking wet and it will not fall apart, and it allows me to create these dreamy blends that I can't get with a lot of other papers. Now, I can get them with the medical exam paper, and you'll see that in a little bit. But what I love about using the wet strength tissue paper for translucent papers is that it really holds up. And I could let this dry and go over it with multiple more layers of paints and waters and mediums, and it would hold up to all of it. But I'm on a very specific mission today, and that mission is to create transparent papers and extremely translucent papers that will be used in my giant oyster collage. So I am not going for all over coverage today unless that all over coverage happens to be incredibly transparent. So you'll see a lot of different techniques, and I'm going to try to always get them to a transparent or translucent state. So I'm using the Brayer right now for the blending. I'm using here quinacridone nickel azo gold, but you can't get that anymore. So the replacement for that is azo gold, and I will link to that as well. But what I'm doing is I am using the Brayer to create color fields of transparency. Now, the truth is the way that I really enjoy using transparent papers is to have like specific marks that the paints or inks create on these papers, and you'll see more of that later. But to start off, to warm up, I'm just doing these color fields. And so essentially what I'm doing is blending colors on a gel plate. The gel plate I am only using as a palette today. I'm not using it really to create prints, although I may pull a couple prints from it. But I'm really using it as a place to mix colors. And so I'm lightly mixing colors on the gel plate, then bringing it over onto the paper. Now, this paper that I'm on right now is the medical exam paper. It's crepe style, really, really important. I've had 100% success using the crepe style medical exam paper that I'll link to. It's the McKesson brand. Other brands are available, and I've not used them. I have heard from other artists that they work, so just know that you may have to ask around. But The medical exam paper is a softer paper than the wet strength tissue paper. It's not less durable, it's incredibly durable. It just has a softer feel to it, and it has excellent tearability. Now, I don't know if tearability is really a word, but today it's a Jackie word, and this piece of paper is so gorgeous to me. Now, you may be looking at it and thinking, "Oh, it looks like mud, it looks, the colors are weird." This is the and perfect type of mark making to use when you're going to be using your papers for transparency in collage. It's not like I'm going to try to create a whole space in the collage with this piece of paper. What this piece of paper is going to allow me to do is to really highlight certain areas in the collage or make another area look old and speckled or even wrinkled. In creating translucent and transparent papers, you are constantly giving yourself material to use just to create visual interest later on. Now, how do I know I'm going to use this paper? I don't actually know that I'm going to use this paper in the collage, but I like it enough that I think I will. So just know that when you're creating a stash of papers before starting a collage project, have in mind certain ways that you can use the papers, because that will help inform how you actually paint the papers as you're developing the stash. So I'm going back now to the wet strength tissue paper, and you're going to see me go back and forth. You may not know that it's wet strength or if it's medical exam paper by just looking at it on the screen here. I'll try my best to tell you when I'm using what, but I just want you to know these are really the only two papers I'm using today. So just know any effect that I get could be done on either paper. So what I did here was I sprayed the medical exam paper with water. I got it nice and wet, and then I laid it down onto the gel plate and pulled a bit of a print. It's not a great solid print, but that's not what I was trying to do. I'm trying to get these color fields, and I would like to get them with really soft, blendy edges. And a great way to achieve that effect is to get the paper wet to begin with, right? I think a lot of you know I use water a lot in my art. I just think it's a great tool for making really atmospheric type looks. Now I just laid down some fluorescent pink fluid acrylic. That's a golden product. I just got my hands on it this week, so I'm very excited to use it. Will I be using fluorescent pink in my giant oyster collage? I'm not sure, but I don't see why not, because look at the color that was created by blending a little bit of that derylide yellow, the fluorescent pink, a tiny bit of that unbleached titanium, and now I've gone in with some of the Van Dyke brown, and these colors are shaping up to be something remarkable. When I think of an oyster, when I think of the belly of an oyster, these are the types of colors that my imagination comes up with. So it's likely that I will use some of that transparent paper there to help build up the color of the body of the oyster. Now, you can create transparent and translucent papers for your projects, even if you don't know what you're going to be creating. I have a lot of really abstract pieces in my art sketchbooks, in loose pieces that I've done where I had no idea what I was going to create. But I was so happy that I had transparent papers that were hand painted that I could add to the collage. It just adds visual interest. You can have flat color for sure, and that's great. And you can have blended colors, and those are wonderful. But when you can put a piece of paper on top of those blended colors or the flat colors, and it has some marks on it or some visual interest, it completely changes the complexion of what you're creating. Now, this piece of paper here is not translucent or transparent. It just happened to be under all the wet papers that I was working on, and look how gorgeous that is. Now, I probably will use some of that paper in my collage, but I just want you to know that is not the wet strength and it's not the medical exam paper. That is just some white roll paper that I put down on my work table to protect the table, really. So I'm getting bonus round by being able to use it in the collage because it's so beautiful. Now I'm going to add some alcohol to the mix, and I use alcohol quite a bit in my painted papers because it has a reaction with the paints. So when you spray alcohol onto a wet paint, or a water-based paint is really what I should say, there is a separation that occurs from the alcohol, and it separates the paint. It just separates it. It's hard to explain, but it creates these little dots, and you can see those little dots all over that paper there. You can also see the bigger color fields, and that was caused by the separation of the alcohol and the water. It's a very cool effect. You should try it on your own. You don't have to have a spray bottle. What you saw there is I had a big spray bottle with alcohol that creates big droplets. And then that black continuous spray bottle that you're seeing right down there in the lower left, that creates a fine mist effect. So they both do the same thing, but the size of the reaction is different. You should play with it. I highly recommend it. If you are spraying alcohol in your studio, just make sure you have good ventilation. I mean, you shouldn't be inhaling that, right? I didn't inhale. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking scraps of the medical exam paper. So the roll that I have is pretty wide. I think it's 21 inches wide, and it's too wide for my guillotine paper cutter. So I fold it in half, cut it down, and I usually have some edges like you saw right there. Those are fabulous. They're just small pieces of paper. You can use this with any type of paper, but they're just small pieces of paper that you can lay down on your palette and pull off some of the paint, right? It's like bonus material, and I love it. Now this color here, this is an ink. This is an acrylic ink. And I can't tell you what color that is right now. I will look it up and I will put it in the description below. It's not flame orange, but it is some type of red-orange acrylic ink. And I'm mixing it with the Derylide Yellow acrylic paint. Now, I know a whole bunch of you are going to ask why I did that, why I would mix the acrylic ink with the acrylic paint. And I don't have a good reason for doing it. My hands just did it, but I'm super happy with the color that I was able to get with it. So experiment and play. Let your hands do the things your hands want to do. Will you ruin some papers? Yes, you will. And does it really matter? Not at all. You are more likely to discover new ways to use these things than not. Oh, I love this color. This really deep orangey color. I also dropped in some of the iridescent gold fluid acrylic. And what I'm doing now is I'm taking a fan brush and I'm using the fan brush in an unusual way. I'm not intentionally painting design with this brush. I'm also not using it like one would typically use a fan brush. I am just moving the color around this wet strength tissue paper that I got wet with the spray bottle. But I'm just moving it around. I'm interested in this color. It was just a tool that I had nearby. Again, experimenting and playing to create these translucent papers. You just never know when there's going to be a mark that is made by a tool that you're using that you decide you can't live without, that it's such a cool mark, and you just don't know what tools will do it. I mean, sometimes you can guess, but like right now, I'm just loving the way that this fan brush is blending the colors into one another. So we're not seeing really hard edges here. We're just seeing really soft, luscious fields of color. And what I'm noticing on this plate and has me so excited is that that separation that happened earlier with the alcohol is expanding even more on the gel plate, and it's creating something that I'm absolutely going to pull a print from in a moment. I don't know if you can see that over to the right, but it's gorgeous and it's exciting. And what's also exciting is this piece of paper. This is just a piece of newsprint that I put underneath both the wet strength tissue paper and the medical exam paper, just to protect it from the table. And the patterning on there is so gorgeous. The color blending there is so gorgeous that I am going to save that piece of newsprint. Right, so this is a piece of wet strength tissue paper. I put it down on the gel plate so I could pull up those textures that I was seeing on the gel plate. Look at that. Look how cool that is, first off. The alcohol created those two circular dots that you see there. That was pure alcohol that had nothing to do with me shaping the paint. But do you see the wiggly lines? I mean, those wiggly lines in the orange and the gold, that's going to create an element of texture when I use this in the collage that I wouldn't be able to get any other way. There'd be no way to do that. Ugh, I love that. So this here are this two pieces of medical exam paper, and I'm just putting a piece of newsprint on the top, really just so I can press down and get all that paint off the plate without getting my hands totally covered in orange. I don't mind paint on my hands, but also if I can avoid it, I do. Oh God. These textures, when I start tearing these papers up to use in the collage, I think I'm just so excited by the possibilities there. So excited. Now, this is some of the Payne's Gray that I am putting in what is remaining, all that orange that was remaining on the plate. There's still some undertones of the fluorescent pink, and I think that is just a very, oh gosh, look at that. Oh, that's sexy. That's just beautiful. Now, I don't have to use these papers in my giant oyster collage. I probably will. I mean, that's the intention behind this. But it's also just a day of painting papers, which is never a bad thing. I like the direction the papers are going in. I love the possibilities that I'm seeing for all of them. And it's a variety that I probably could not have anticipated and did not anticipate before I started today. I didn't use as many of the inks as I thought I would. Again, I just put all the supplies out on my table so they would be close by, but also, very frankly, since I just did the studio refresh and my cabinets are all nice and white, I wanted to keep them all nice and white and not just keep running over there with my hands covered in paint and pulling on the cabinet doors and getting them all covered in paint. So, I'm having a little studio vanity moment. Now, this technique that created that texture that you just saw on the paper, and you'll see all the papers again at the end, so don't worry if that went by too quickly. But that texture was created by just skip rolling the brayer in the exact same way that I did in that video a few months ago where I showed you how to skip roll when you're gel printing. This time I didn't do it on the gel plate. I actually did it directly onto the paper. So you can get a very similar effect without having a gel plate. Very cool. I'll link to that video so you can watch it if you haven't seen it. And now I am just cleaning up. I had a tremendous amount of Van Dyke Brown down on the plate. And what I did here was I just took some medical exam paper. I balled it up so it would get all wrinkly and then pressed it into that Van Dyke Brown. And look at those gorgeous marks. Now, when I'm working on the shell of the oyster, the outside edge of the oyster shell, that's going to be invaluable. Those transparent marks going over the paint will be fabulous. This might be my favorite. I don't know if it's going to be my favorite paper today, but look at that. like, and again, I'm not bothered that I'm not pulling an entire piece of paper with paint all over it. That's not the point for today. The point for today is creating transparent papers that I can tear up and adjust the visual interest of the final collage. All right, I'm going to go through now and show you what was created today. I'm going to start with the two pieces that are not translucent or transparent at all. These were just essentially roll-off papers, really, and they are on newsprint. And I think both are stunning, to be honest. I look forward to using them. Don't know if they'll be used in the oyster collage, but they'll be used for something. And these were the little scraps that I was telling you about. There should be no waste in the studio, truly. You can use everything you have. These have some really beautiful patterns on them and color variations. And even this hot pink right there, that specific mark could be used in this project. Interesting. So yeah, so don't let your scraps go to waste. Use them. All right. Now to the main show, the show and tell of what we did. There were purples and pinks created. They're transparent and translucent. That there was the wet strength tissue paper. What's in my hand now, my right hand, that also actually was the wet strength tissue paper. But look at these patterns. So if you were working on a painting, right, and you wanted to add some texture to it without messing around with the colors, you could take some of these transparent papers, tear them up, and put them in, and that's going to create that textural interest that you're seeking. I really do love that piece right there a lot. Now, some of these will just be filler papers. Some of them will be very intentional to create a very specific look in the final collage. But I love that I have options, and I have lots of different colors in, oh yeah, that's very cool. As far as texture goes, so what I haven't explained, and I should have really, is that there's a specific formula to make these papers actually go as translucent or transparent as possible. And that is when you collage them down, you put the gloss medium down first. It needs to be gloss medium. You put gloss medium down first on your substrate. You get the paper with the paint on it soaking wet with water. You put that down on the wet gloss medium, and then you go over the top immediately with wet gloss medium. And that will give your papers the best chance of going completely transparent or translucent. I have all this information inside my free resources community, and there's a link to that in the comments and also in the description below. There's really no reason not to join. It's free, and there's incredible resources. This is my favorite piece of paper of the day. It's crazy making. Like, if you look at it, your eyes want to go everywhere all the time. But I love it. It's exciting to me. This one's a little variation of it. Yeah, I am super happy with all of this. Oh. When you work wet, when painting papers for translucency, you have the ability to create really dreamy blends where it's just color fields and it's atmospheric. And you also have the ability to create really sharp edges like you've seen in some of these papers. All of these are material that will make your collage so much more interesting. Really, imagine once I start tearing up little bits of this paper here, the marks that it will create on the oyster shell. Spectacular. I'm just thrilled by all of this. This was the paper that was skip rolled with the brayer. Just such a cool effect. And as a single piece of paper, maybe not that sexy, but once you start tearing it up and using it, yum. Absolute yum. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This is part of the Giant Oyster series, and this is the video that I would watch next if you enjoyed this one.